Football on the Spish. Football on the Spish. Spish. Hello, my name is Tom, and I'm sitting here with JC. We're here to talk about Week 5 in the NFL. And let's start with JC. Let's hear about your fantasy team, your favorite team, the Tennessee Titans, and let's start with your fantasy team name.
The team names are Show Me Them TDs. I named both of them the same thing.
Very good. Show me them TDs. Good.
The first team, which you and I are co-owners of, much akin to the Green Bay Packers setup, we were fortunate to pull out the victory. It was very close. Owen Daniels almost cost us the week, but luckily Tony Romo decided to throw 5 touchdowns and 500 yards, and that let us beat the number 1 team in the league.
So just so you know what fantasy football can do to people, last night the San Francisco 49ers played the Houston Texans and beat them 34-3 in a game that was really not a contest from halftime on.
No.
However, both JC and myself are watching a game that is 34-3 in the fourth quarter, standing up, watching, hoping that Owen Daniels does not make a catch. Owen Daniels himself didn't care if he caught the ball or not at that point. The whole coaching staff for the Texans doesn't care if Owen Daniels catches the ball or not.
Nope.
But JC and Tom in Chicago, 2,000 miles away from San Francisco, are standing and watching a 31-point blowout.
That is absolutely correct, because it would have been tragedy on par with mass genocide had he caught one more pass for 10 yards.
Yeah, we would not have been sleeping last night at all.
I would have been sick. I would have been sick.
Very, very sick.
Yes, and then fortunately my other team did win as well, though in more convincing fashion.
And your favorite NFL football team?
Tennessee Titans.
And what'd they do?
They unfortunately lost to the very hot Kansas City Chiefs, who now go to 5-0.
Okay. 2 things. One, would you rather have Show Me Them TDs win or the Tennessee Titans?
It's an excellent question. I always balance it that I need one or the other to win. The worst weekend is if they both lose.
Okay. So if Show Me Them TDs were to face the Tennessee Titans in a game, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your fantasy team were to play your favorite team.
Yeah.
Who would you root for?
I would root for my fantasy team, because I recognize that the Titans' chances of going to the playoffs and doing well this year are low. However, the chance to win close to $1,000 is much higher. So I'd be fine with Tennessee going 9-7, 10-6, even if they didn't make the playoffs, as long as we still won the fantasy pool.
Okay. Moving to the Kansas City Chiefs, who beat the Tennessee Titans. I want to talk about them briefly. Yep. JC, fill in the people at home, or if you're listening at work, or if you're running.
Yeah, running.
Just good for you.
Jogging. Maybe if you're sitting.
Fill in anyone who's sitting, running, maybe on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fill them in on what's been new with the Kansas City Chiefs this year.
Well, so obviously the big news from last year is they finished last in the league, which gave them the first overall pick, which was really a big deal. They only won a total of 3 games last season. Was it 2 games? 2-14? It was 2 games. They won a total of 2 games last season, so they went 2-14, which is a horrendous record. They fired Romeo Crennel, the coach, who's been featured in many a Coors Light commercial for his antics at press conferences. They fired him. They traded away Matt Castle, who was their starting quarterback for years, former backup quarterback of the New England Patriots. And then they picked up Alex Smith in a trade from San Francisco, who chose to go with Colin Kaepernick. Ironically, history shows this happened once before with the Chiefs and the Niners, except before it was Joe Montana instead of Alex Smith. So on top of that, the Philadelphia Eagles fired Andy Reid, and Kansas City went in and swooped him up. So they have more than doubled their total wins from last season.
They are 5-0.
They are 5-0, and they are number 1 in turnover differential. They've got an amazing defense, and
they have Andy Reid is a top 5 head coach in the league, right?
Absolutely, and I think you could, when you think about it, I think you can make the argument he's a top 3 coach.
Okay, he's a top 3 coach in the league, and Alex Smith is middle-of-the-road quarterback.
Yeah, maybe somewhere in the 14 to 18 range, depending on the week.
Right. And that just shows you, with a guy who does not completely stink at quarterback and a guy who knows what he's doing as the head coach, you go from the worst team in the league to undefeated.
Correct.
That's how slim the margin is in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Here's my issue with Alex Smith.
Okay.
Last year, he loses his job because he was injured. Mm-hmm. Colin Kaepernick came in, and Colin Kaepernick was better than him.
Correct.
People felt bad for Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen Alex Smith?
Yes.
The guy looks like Ryan Gosling. He looks a lot like Ryan Gosling.
Okay, I'm with you.
People like Ryan Gosling for how he looks.
Correct.
Therefore, Ryan Gosling would be a good person to look like.
Correct.
Have you seen Alex Smith's wife?
No.
Former Raiders cheerleader.
Excellent.
She's a definite babe. Mm-hmm. Alex Smith, I believe, was making $6 million a year last year. Mm-hmm. So people were actively feeling bad for a guy who's married to a Raiderette, looks like Ryan Gosling, and is making $6 million a year to hold a clipboard. Like, we don't need to have bake sales for this guy, or by any stretch of the imagination. He wasn't as good as the guy that replaced him.
He was not as good as the guy who replaced him. But everybody knows in the NFL, it is absolutely sort of a taboo topic that you do not lose your starting position due to injury, especially one being a concussion. So Alex Smith, it wasn't like he banged up his knee and it was affecting his mobility, or he hurt his arm and it was affecting his throwing motion. He simply got a concussion in a game at a point in the season where he was number 3 in total QBR at the time. So Alex Smith was on the rise. I mean, he was doing really well, and then he got a concussion, and he never played another down after that. Now, fortunately for him, the Niners did treat him right and let him go to a team where he could succeed with a guy like Andy Reid. And Andy Reid has been a fan of Alex Smith ever since Alex Smith was still in college.
I want to make a transition to this. Who's good in the NFL?
Team-wise or player-wise?
Teams. Who's good?
Well, I mean, you have to start the conversation with the Denver Broncos. I mean, through the first, 5 games now? Through the first 5 games, they are averaging 46 points a game on offense. Averaging 46 points a game on offense.
For those of you listening, 24 points a game would be good.
24 points,
you should be winning most games.
Most offensive coordinators and head coaches say, okay, we want to score 24 and hold the other team to 17.
They are scoring double that.
They are doubling what the target is. And what's amazing is they do have a very legitimate defense to go with that. So they're not like the New Orleans Saints the year they won the Super Bowl. They're not like even the Patriots the year they went on that 18-0 run. They've got a legitimate defense to contend with as well. And not to mention that some of their defense is still out. You've got major players like Von Miller who are still serving a 6-game suspension.
So Von Miller, for those of you who don't know, failed multiple drug tests. So he is doing a 6-game suspension right now. But the terms in which he failed the latest drug tests are my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Von Miller had to pee in a cup. He knew that he was going to test positive for the drug test.
Correct.
So he tries to buddy up to the guy who's administering the drug test and say, hey, why don't you just switch my pee with another player's, or I believe your own.
Yeah. So,
guy starstruck did do this for Von Miller. Like, hey, NFL linebacker, all-world player, I'll happily hold your pee and switch it with another person's.
Absolutely.
They got caught doing that, which is why Von Miller is currently serving his suspension. So on to the offensive side of the ball with the Broncos. They're led by Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning. I mean,
best player in the league?
Hands down. And I mean, he is building a case to be named the best quarterback ever. Now, people are going to say he is not good in January in the playoffs. He does have, if you compare his regular season stats and his postseason stats, they are starkly different. But the bottom line is the guy is the most cerebral quarterback in the NFL. He knows the game. He does make every other player around him better. He has no ego. He's a very likable, blue-collar kind of guy. Even though he's really not blue-collar. I mean, he's he's not the highest, but he's one of the highest-paid quarterbacks in the league. Plus, you've got the additional story of all of the neck surgeries and being released by the team.
So 2 years ago, Peyton Manning did not play.
No.
Question if he'd ever play again. Mm-hmm. He had to get spinal fusion surgeries.
Yep.
Played very well last year, but the thought was, can he even throw to the same capability as he could before due to these surgeries.
Yep.
Guy's come out this year, and he's had the best 5 weeks in the history of the NFL.
Oh, hands down. I mean, right now his total is 20 touchdowns to 1 interception. 20 touchdowns to, I mean, on average in the league, if you can go 2-to-1 ratio touchdowns to interceptions, that's a pretty good season. If you can throw for, 30 touchdowns and only throw about 14 or 15 picks, most quarterbacks, average quarterbacks would take that statistic. Peyton Manning is doing 20-to-1 through the first 5 games.
And again, it's because he's smart.
Smart. Absolutely smart.
He's slow.
Yep.
If you ever notice this, when Peyton Manning runs, his legs go forward, but his arms move as if he's backpedaling. It just does not look right. He has a good arm, but not great. He's not particularly athletic.
Nope. Although he did rush for a touchdown.
He did rush for a touchdown yesterday with his arms going backward and his legs going forwards.
Which is rare.
And he's not nearly the athlete as the guy that was on the other side of the ball yesterday, Tony Romo for the Dallas Cowboys.
Of course. Oh, my God.
Has there ever been a game that captured who Tony Romo is more than yesterday?
No, not at all. I mean, the guy throws for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. He gets close to breaking the league record in most passing yards for a game, right? Has just a phenomenal game. Really high completion percentage, everything. It's a shootout between Tony Romo and Peyton Manning. And then on the final drive, to try to march down and score, the guy throws a pick in a double coverage.
And that's what Tony Romo does.
That's what he does.
He gets them to the point that they can win it. They're there because of him. And then he loses the game.
It's absolutely correct.
Tony Romo threw for 500 yards yesterday, and it was Tony Romo's fault they lost.
Yep. Tony, put aside all the other stats, that 1 interception is what everybody is talking about right now. And they should be. I mean, that's what they should be. I mean, listen, what separates players like Peyton Manning from Tony Romo? It's making those poor decisions. Tony Romo, I mean, it really is. It's almost like a mental block or some sort of mental thing that this hurdle he can't get over that, when he's going into those situations, he's not thinking about how can I go down and score this touchdown and win the game. At that point in the game, late in the fourth quarter, he's thinking one thing: how do I not screw this up? And that's what you can't have as a quarterback. I mean, you can't have that as any NFL player, but you especially can't have that as a quarterback.
So Tony Romo went to Eastern Illinois, came out of nowhere to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, which is the premier position in all sports.
Oh, yeah, hands down.
Shortstop for the Yankees and quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Absolutely.
He dated Jessica Simpson, Carrie Underwood, maybe someone else in there, but he was enjoying being the Cowboys quarterback.
Playing a lot of golf.
And then tried to kind of get it together and say, okay, now I'm going to excel at being the Cowboys quarterback, and he hasn't been able to do it yet. But I want to touch on this dating thing for a second.
Mm-hmm.
He dated Jessica Simpson when Jessica Simpson was like Dukes of Hazzard.
Hot.
Yeah.
Like sizzling.
Like you're willing to have a conversation with her because she was that attractive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dated Carrie Underwood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who's very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Then got engaged to a news anchor, Miss Missouri, in Dallas. Candace Crawford is her name. Candace Crawford is the sister of Chase Crawford from Gossip Girl.
Okay.
Here's what I want to point out. Chase Crawford also dated Carrie Underwood. Is that weird?
That's weird.
So you get together with this guy, your brother-in-law, and you both had relations with the same girl, and he is with your sister now.
Yeah,
it's weird, right?
It's a little bizarre. Because, now correct me if I'm wrong, he's not still dating Carrie Underwood. They're no longer together. So at least there's that.
No, that's over.
At least there's that. But, yeah, it's a little bit bizarre. I mean, it makes you wonder, I mean, can't you broaden out the pool a little bit? I mean, like, there are so many fish in the sea. Why do you have to date the guy that your new brother-in-law is dating? Not to mention the fact that they have a baby together now. That Tony Romo and his wife have a newborn baby. So, literally, he's got this nephew that he has to think, like, man, that could have been Carrie Underwood's baby instead of my sister's. It's very bizarre.
Okay. Just wanted to touch. One question that we're going to leave off this week on. Okay. Halloween's coming up.
Yep.
You love Halloween.
I love Halloween.
You love Halloween because girls dress up and make inappropriate decisions.
But yeah.
You, me, and Jay Cutler are hanging out at a bar together near Halloween.
Yep.
Everyone's in their costumes.
I'm with it.
You leave,
Mm-hmm.
and Jay Cutler and I are standing there, and he goes, "Hey, where'd JC go?" I said, "He went home with that girl that was dressed as."
Ooh, good question.
What would you like her to be dressed as?
That's an excellent question. And it's a tough one. Because there's really no wrong answer here. Because what they're dressed as is less relevant than what the actual costume is. I'll say this. In general, as long as a midriff is showing, and if you look at the legs from 0 to 100%, at least 85% of the legs are showing. I'm feeling like that's probably a winnable opportunity. As far as like a specific, okay, let me tell you this way: I will not go home with someone dressed as a slutty nun because that feels weird.
Yep.
But basically anything else in the canon of possible Halloween costumes, I'm down for. Nuns may be my only disqualifying.
Okay, no nuns. Cops,
totally down.
Native Americans,
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Pocahontas, yeah.
Ghostbusters.
Sexy Ghostbusters is great, absolutely. Nurses, you've got
Witches.
Witches. Maybe if a girl was dressed like like Carrie, and maybe like from the horror movie about the girl. Like I don't know if I'd do that. If they were dressed like a zombie, I feel like zombies, just by nature of zombies, aren't sexy. But basically, anything else. Yeah.
So Jay Cutler comes up to me. Tom, where's JC? Oh, he just went home with the girl dressed as
Princess Leia. Princess Leia.
And that is the Week 5 NFL recap from the Spish, JC and Tom.